Hey there, this is Kathleen of Journey to Self Mastery. How's it going, everyone? I trust all is well with you. I'm going to introduce to you a workshop series which I will be facilitating from March to August this year. And the workshop is called Awakening the Goddess Within You. And the learning objective of this course or this workshop is connecting and embodying the sacred feminine through the great Hindu goddesses. Now, before I elaborate further about the course, about the workshop series, let me just share with you a background story. Now, some of you already know that I used to travel a lot, very frequently to India. This is because I have a very special connection with the land and the love for the land and the subcontinent. So I have traveled to India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka for a decade now, about 10 to 13 years. But strangely, somehow during those years that I've been traveling there, I couldn't quite connect with the Hindu spiritual path. I have a lot of respect for Hinduism, its spiritual path, the deities, the temple rituals, the prayers, the sacred sites, and all that. But somehow during those years when I used to travel there, I couldn't quite connect with it. So every time the tour guide brings me, because I travel solo to India. So each time the tour guide brings me to the temples and explain the mythological stories and all that, I get so confused because there's just so many versions, so many gods and goddesses, so many avatars that I found it overwhelming. I just went on taking photos and everything. I enjoy the vibes at the temples, but I just couldn't understand the stories and all that. So all that just went over my head. So many people assume that I was following a guru in India because of my multiple trips there, but no, I wasn't following a guru. I traveled there mostly for tourism. I love the vibrant culture, the food, the colors, the paradox of everything that is India, the craziness of it, the history, the amazing monuments and their ancient sites. Okay, and also at that time I was a travel blogger and travel writer for several years. So my purpose was mainly for travel, not spiritual. However, something changed along the way. In 2018, I discovered spirituality for my own personal healing, and for a few years, I got in touch with a few spiritual teachers here in KL. And then in 2020, I accompanied a spiritual group to Nepal, fulfilling my role as a trip planner. Okay, because I curated their travel itinerary and they booked a tour with me, and I accompanied them on that trip. And so we visited a few sacred sites and temples. Little did I know, something shifted within me. And as soon as that trip was over, the rest of the group returned to Malaysia, but I continued to travel. From Nepal, I went to Tamil Nadu in India to recce places for private tours for my trip planning service. And although it was my second time in Tamil Nadu, it was actually the first time that I saw the temples in a very different way. Everything just clicked. All right, the mythological stories, the gods and goddesses, the avatars, everything just fell into place, and I saw the temples, and my visits was just entirely different. I just do not know how to explain that, but everything just changed, everything just fell into place. And so after about 10 days in traveling there, and then I came back to Malaysia, and within a few weeks we were in global lockdown. And subsequent months later, I decided to be a spiritual coach and practitioner. And I never looked back ever since. So while offering spiritual healing and teaching to students and clients, I continued with my own personal study and healing, and part of that journey was healing and empowering the sacred feminine, the divine feminine. So in early 2022, I began to study about the Greek goddesses. For nearly about 6 to 7 months, I studied about the mythological stories and the ways in which they relate to our human life stories, their characteristics, their strengths, their shadow aspects, and their archetypes governing our chakras. And some of you had the opportunity to learn a bit about that in the emotional healing and wellness course. And through the studies of feminine archetypes, I've come to understand myself a lot better as a woman, and the ways in which my consciousness, my awareness, or lack of, okay, influence my thoughts, my emotions, my actions and choices. And even till today, I'm continuously learning to create and manifest a more fulfilling and balanced life. And then towards the end of 2022, I was then led to another personal study, and this time is the great Hindu goddesses. And of course, by this time, I wasn't confused anymore about their mythological stories and their avatars. In fact, I was so ready to learn and embrace the teachings. And I was very fortunate to learn, though for a brief period, from a spiritual teacher called Sally Campton. Sally was a spiritual teacher for nearly 50 years. And if you allow me, I'd like to give a brief about who Sally was. And I'm reading from this book, Awakening Shakti. That's her book. Okay. Sally was a flourishing journalist in the 1970s, and in 1974 she entered a life of full-time study and spiritual practice. She lived, worked and traveled with an Indian guru for many years, and in 2002 she was given initiation into Sannyasa, the Indian order of Saraswati Swamis. She spent 20 years teaching in her guru's organization and received extensive training in the texts of yoga, Vedanta, and Kashmir Shaivism, which she also taught all over the world. And so later on in 2002, she put aside her monastic robes and began to teach independently. Sally's teachings combine deep knowledge of the texts of yoga and tantra, and with practical wisdom from contemporary psychology and integral thought. Sadly, Sally passed on in mid-2023 at the age of 80. I've never met her in person, neither have I attended her live teachings on Zoom. However, I've learned and studied from her based on her recorded teachings, which I had purchased, and read her book, Awakening Shakti, and followed through the practices and exercises in her book. And so her recorded teachings and books had made such a personal impact on me, seriously, that I feel is important for me to give credit to her in this video. So it's been a year and a few months now of studying and practicing and embodying the practices of the Hindu goddesses, and also a lot of self-contemplation as well, and with much guidance from the goddesses themselves. I feel I'm ready to offer and share the workshop series, Awakening the Goddess Within You. Now, the contents of the workshop are not the same as the one that I learned from Sally. In fact, it's a combination of Sally's teachings and also from her book, Awakening Shakti, and my own personal experiences. And the workshops that I'm about to facilitate, don't worry, they're not very deep in yoga or tantra or Vedanta teachings. I will actually interpret them into layman's terms so that it's easy for all of us to study, to follow, and to practice in our day-to-day. And so to know more about the workshops, please watch the next video. And in the meantime, thank you so much for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next video. Yeah.